whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today, but if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace.
Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., the destruction of due process in America. For approximately 2 years now, I have gone on a painstaking quest to investigate the rise and fall of an American icon, Bill Cosby. In the mid-1980s, there was not a star that was higher than Cosby. Advertisements with Coca-Cola, Jello, Kodak, along with the #1 television show for 5 straight years in a row. On Thursday nights, it was must-see TV on NBC. Cosby resurrected the genre of the traditional family sitcom that was once thought dead by television critics. He did this as a Black American with an all-Black cast and showed mainstream network executives in white America that it was possible to be successful without showing the worst in people. He also demonstrated the power that television had, as it can make younger people dream to be the best that they can be. However, like many celebrity stars, unfortunately, they all come crashing down, sometimes by their own fault, others not so much. In this book, I attempted to highlight certain things. We go in depth into both of his trials in 2017 and 2018, respectively. What if I told you that these criminal trials were politically motivated by an overzealous district attorney? Will you also be shocked to learn the attacks on Mr. Cosby did not start in 2014, but also in the 90s, not long after his attempted quest to purchase a major network? From where did all of these allegations of sexual misconduct come from? Were the accusers telling the truth? In the 2 years of research, with some help from others interested in learning the truth and facts about this case, we discussed both the legal reasons why his prosecution and trial were illegal, unwarranted, and also the possible personal motives as to why this may have occurred. Most importantly, we warn about the dangers of prejudice and why trial by social media, or mainstream media rather, should never be the norm. All this and more in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., the destruction of due process in America. Available on Amazon this fall in Kindle and paperback format.
The place to be is right here with me. It is Random Topic Sundays only on channel gboot2786, Gavin Richard on Facebook and on Twitter. Wherever you are, wherever you are. Hope you are blessed and doing safe this fine evening. I'm coming to you live from out of state in the beautiful Florida Keys at the moment. We are going to be talking now. This is why I had to start the show late, because I needed to get out and have a place where I can actually record with you all tonight. As you see right here in the shared window, I have the Facebook page at Commonwealth Cause. Please go to there right now. Subscribe to at Commonwealth Cause to get more updates on when this book will be released, which I'm proud to say will be soon. You'll be able to pre-order these books this week. Very soon, actually, tonight, I'm setting my stuff up on Amazon. I'm going to set up the pre-order as we speak. So get ready for that. Also, ladies and gentlemen, If you have not already, I need you to please go to nonniescreoleblends.com and get you some Creole seasoning. Try it on chicken, meat, or fish. Nonnies goes great with every dish. That's right. Nonnies goes great with chicken, meat, fish, and even salads. I asked Bishop Gerald Scott. He actually tried it on his barbecue on his pot roast too. I don't have a rhyme for roast to fit in there, but it goes great on everything. So you go ahead and go to nonniescreoleblends.com, hit that link right there with the shopping cart, and order you some good old Creole seasoning blends, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, of course, we have to tell you about our music channels. We also want to tell you where you can donate. Hit that Cash App. You see the ticker at the bottom, Cash App, Google Pay, PayPal, and Zelle. Please donate to the Cash App. Money, as you know, this channel is not monetized. YouTube has been on that bullshit. But I need you to go to Video Soul on Amazon, Spotify, and iTunes. Download that, and also go to iTunes now and play as we get our theme song to get on up. So before we get on down, ladies and gentlemen, let us go ahead and get on the song this Sunday night before Memorial Day. Let's roll.
Dance floor is where we'll meet. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop or do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Now, 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you breathe, then you achieve. And so, if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll feel the groove. Get on the floor. Get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the floor, baby. Yeah, gotta get on. Come on, baby, gotta get on. Baby. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on.
Yo. All right, family. Feel the groove. Get on the floor, no matter where you are. How you doing tonight? As you can see, guys, and I stated earlier, I am not at home. I'm actually in the beautiful yet rainy Florida Keys right now, as we speak, having a little vacay. Still wanted to come on with you all tonight, but it won't be one of my longest videos. I did not want to do the Avatar podcast version that Nicole does and that Harvey Superboy is so used to doing. Of course, we know if Nicole doesn't come on screen, it's for one reason only, is that her hair looks like it came straight out of Compton. So, oh, I love getting her with that one. That hair messed up. I know it. She didn't get that hair. She missed that appointment. I know what it is, Nicole. Don't hide it, baby. I love Nicole. Love Harvey too. I didn't get to watch all the live stream, but I'll be watching it. And I will tell everybody, if you have not subscribed to Nicole's View, please do so. But I'm sure most of you have, because most of my followers here, my subscribers, were as a result of Nicole. Nicole's View, a result of Sean James in part. So special shout out to them. But I know I'm doing competition with Tariq, but this was probably the only time I can get on. I could get on here. If you guys hear some noise in the back, they got the game going on. So we're out in Florida. So, Miami is playing the Celtics and it started. So we're in between that. So I'm not going to be too long with this live stream, because it's really one topic we're all focusing on. In all sincerity, is the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, that involved, we've had over 21 people, most of them, 19 of them being students, 2 being teachers, that have died, or murdered, I should say, rather, at the hands of this sociopath, this fucking beta male, which is what it is. We got a lot of beta males. We have these white supremacists that are running around targeting African Americans, Black people being targeted. Of course, we have absolutely no police protection of some kind, and that's why I want to come on here. Now, before I do come on and explain the topic, because I want to clarify something, as my brother, the lead attorney, talks about and says, I am not your attorney, I'm the lead attorney. Well, I'm not going to directly quote the brother, and I'll just say, I am your attorney. I'm Gavin Risha, attorney at law, and licensed in the state of Louisiana. So views, any comments that I make are from my expertise as an attorney, educator. It does not mean I represent you. So just to clarify, because some people say they get in trouble in court. Gavin Risha, my lawyer, he told me I could do this, he could do that. No, I did not tell you, because you didn't sign a contract with me and you ain't give me that bread. Give me some bread, sign a contract, with that deal. But let's go ahead and talk about some things. So our topic for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, they all involve technically the same thing. No particular order. Everybody's in CNN making case for gun control, why it won't work, more disturbing details concerning at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And I'm going to start with this topic here. It's technically involved thing. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, claims misled by police. According to this, we're going to go to ABC News. I need someone to give me that copyright disclaimer. Let's go to ABC News. So earlier it was reported by the text that he was on Friday that he was misled by the police as to their response as to what happened. Now, remember early on when we were talking when this thing happened, they were talking about, uh, you know, they didn't know exactly what was going on, how many shoot, that there was a crucial decision. For we're finding out that the police just flat out did not go inside. They claimed to be waiting on SWAT, and that didn't happen. Border Patrol actually got this guy. Now, Greg Abbott, a briefing, stated that there were details that he was not led to learn about. He did not know about, and this information is coming out, and of course, the tech officials are even coming out saying that they were wrong. We're going to play this video. This is coming from the governor of Texas himself, Greg Abbott.
I am livid about what happened. I was on this very stage 2 days ago, and I was telling the public information that had been told to me in a room just a few yards behind where we're located right now. I wrote down hand notes in detail about what everybody in that room told me in sequential order about what happened. And when I came out here on this stage and told the public what happened, it was a recitation of what people in that room told me, whether it be law enforcement officials or non-law enforcement officials, whatever the case may be. And as everybody has learned, the information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate. And I'm absolutely livid about it. And here's my expectation. My expectation is that the law enforcement leaders that are leading the investigations, which includes the Texas Rangers and the FBI, they get to the bottom of every fact with absolute certainty. There are people who deserve answers the most, and those are the families whose lives have been destroyed. They need answers that are accurate, and it is inexcusable that they may have suffered from any inaccurate information whatsoever. And it is imperative that the leaders of the investigations about exactly what happened get down to the very second of exactly what happened with 100% accuracy and explain it to the public, but most importantly, to the victims who've been devastated.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right.
Well, he is not lying about that one, though. The officials, the police officials, I see what you all are saying in the comments here. But what essentially happened is that there was a crucial error we all know that was made where the police, the Texas was announced by the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety that the cops made a crucial error waiting to enter a classroom because they believed it was no longer an active shooter situation. And sadly, that was not the case. We know that was not the case. It was clearly an active shooter situation. Now I'm hearing different reports that this man, Ramos, so actually they're saying now he shot off the door. My earlier reports that I read said that the door was actually pried open.
Right now, Uvalde, Texas Department of Public Safety, they're giving an update on a school shooting that killed 19 students and 2 teachers. Let's listen in.
Now this was, let's see the date on this if we
Good morning.
can.
Thank you for being here today.
So this was 2 days ago.
Texas Department of Public Safety. On Tuesday, the district attorney for the 38th Judicial District, Received Mitchell, requested that the Texas Rangers under the Department of Public Safety assume lead responsibility of this horrific murder of 19 innocent child and 2 adults. Our goal today is to provide the parents, the community of Uvalde, the public, as much information as we can.
Department of Public
where we are on the
Safety.
investigation. We're here to report the facts as we know them now, not to defend what was done or to criticize what was done or the actions taken. I'll begin first and foremost with the timeline as we know it. The second timeline, I'll discuss the 911 timeline. Then we'll talk about the relevant social or digital media footprint of the subject. Then we'll also have plenty of time for questions at that point.
Now, let me stop right here because it's going to be like a 17-minute video. So I don't know how much long he's going to be. But I'm going to go play a brief video. This is from WFAA. This is out of Dallas, Texas. So
we have a lot of new details coming from the Texas Department of Public Safety, and they shared this map with us today. And I want to begin right here, this is a crucial thing that we're going to loop back to later on. DPS, the shooter, began right here on campus and started firing shots into the building here, possibly through the windows on this school building. The school resource officer, they say, was not on campus at the time, but arrived really quickly, but drove right past the shooter out here who was crouched down. Then a very important point here, DPS says the shooter was able to walk around the building and then straight in through this back door, which minutes earlier had been propped open by a teacher. From there, they say he went straight to these adjoining classrooms, number 111 and 112, and began a hellish rampage with his style rifle and enough ammunition for a small militia.
Hundreds of rounds were pumped in 4 minutes, okay, into those 2 classrooms.
Inside those classrooms, the shooter had locked the doors behind him. In this hallway, police were staging, but they couldn't get through those doors because they didn't have equipment to breach them. And besides, the school district police chief, DPS,
what is this town,
was in
Mary?
charge of all of this and decided to go ahead and wait here in the hallway because he no longer thought that this was an active shooter situation.
The incident commander at the time it's believed was a barricaded subject that we had time. There was no kids at risk.
That despite the fact that students were still calling 911 from inside this school building. DPS says at 12:03 p.m., 30 minutes after the shooting began, a little girl called from room 112 and whispered that she was in that room. 7 minutes later, she called back.
Advised there are multiple dead. 12:13, again, she called on the phone. Again at 12:16, she called back and said there was 8 to 9 students alive.
3 minutes after that, another call for help, this time coming from room 111.
She hung up, and another student told her to hang up.
More gunshots, according to investigators. And then an additional 24 long minutes elapsed before another call came in from room 112.
At approximately 12:43 and 12:47, she asked 911 to please send the police now.
DPS says not long after that, now an hour and 17 minutes after the shooting inside began, they were able to get a key from the school to make entry into these 2 classrooms and shoot the gunman to death. By then, of course, though, teachers and students inside had already been killed. Back to that crucial point that we began with up here when the shooter first arrived at the school. Some people are now asking DPS why police officers didn't try to shoot the suspect through the windows of these classrooms when they were locked out from those doors. Right now, DPS does not have an answer for that. That's one of many questions that this investigation is now focused on.
All right, so this is actually our second topic. The more disturbing details, they're kind of entangled. They're tangled. They're in an entanglement, to quote Jada, with the governor of Texas being misled. And so just the more disturbing details that we're finding out what the shooter did, what he did that day. Of course, the story always change. The fact are not, when people are misled, when the facts are not fully disclosed to the public. And we have a duty to learn what goes on and what we want to know, especially who are parents, and even if you're not parents, if you have children or you have nephews and nieces like I have, you're concerned when you hear stuff like this that takes place. But we got to realize something. Let me get this off the right screen. There's a song by War called "The World Is a Ghetto." The world is bad. The world is full of evil men. There are good people in it, don't get me wrong. But the reality is that things now, it never was, especially in our parents, probably in our parents' time, did we see shootings, school shootings like we see today. Although truth be told, many people may think uh, if you take the mass shootings that took place, well, hell, you have people that are actually killed in the United States uh, by heart disease. You have more people in the world. I know they're not incomparable when they happen because that's something that happens over time. Don't get me wrong, but people killed more killed by uh, the weapons that are used. Actually, if you're talking about mass shootings, you have shootings with guns. You have people being killed more with hands than you do with AR-15s. I said this last on Jason Black's show. The Virginia Tech shooter used the Walter P22 and a Glock 19, and those are actually hands the AR-15s. Mark my word. I guess we can segue into this third topic. Everybody is looking for someone to save you. You, ladies and gentlemen, after tonight, will have to understand it's only that can self. It is only us that can save ourselves. Judge Joe talks extensively why we don't have militias like the Jews have in their neighborhoods. Jewish men who are licensed to carry, who are no criminals, have no criminal backgrounds, they protect their neighborhoods. Back then in the 60s, when the civil rights movement was starting, uh, or ending, I should say, especially here in Louisiana and Bogalusa, you did have a group known as the Deacons for Defense and Justice. And those men would actually stand up and stand against members of the KKK coming into their community. And they had arms, they had weapons. So you can't, these were men who served in the military, former World War II veterans, Korean War, even some older men who served in the World War One were actually members of the Deacons for Defense. Now, some people have not, of course, in time they haven't claimed, membership of that organization. It didn't last. Uh, Forrest Whitaker played in it. It's called the Deacons for Defense. For Defense. It was on Showtime back in 2003. Forrest Whitaker, as well as Ozzie Davis, Jonathan Silverman starred in this film, and Forrest Whitaker played a collation of two of the men who founded the Deacons Defense. But if you watch this movie on YouTube, before I take it down, hopefully there's no copyright strike for doing that. I'm not playing the video, but you can watch that there, and I'll put the link there for everybody to watch it. But let them tell you need a gun. Now, I say this because ever since it happens in this, it usually takes place when there is, unfortunately, the tragic taking of life, especially the children, uh, like we saw with Sandy Hook, for instance, back in 2012. There is a push by celebrities and especially left-wing new outlets, CNN and NBC, who want to try and take AR-15s and make this about the AR-15. Now, if you go to CNN right now, they actually stated, and I have this here state. This is a quote that they have. This is for something that they have right here. That's on end. They say states with weaker gun laws have higher rates of firearm and related homicides and suicides. Studies find. They stated that in a study published in January by a leading nonprofit organization that focuses on gun violence prevention, found that there's a direct correlation in states with weaker gun laws and higher rates of gun deaths, including homicides, suicides, and accidental killings. The study by every town for gun safety determined that California had the strongest gun laws in the country. Hawaii topped the list with the lowest rate of gun deaths in the country, while Mississippi led the country with both the weakest gun laws and the highest rate of gun deaths. Now, you'll see, and of course, stuff like this is said, and they put this up, and I'm not saying uh, those people don't have a right to be sad. And when natural things like this happen, it is natural that someone, especially the American people, they try to appeal with us for children. They try to appeal for on an emotional basis with these things. But I want you to understand something. You cannot, I don't care how many children I don't care how many pictures like this they'll wheel out and studies like this that are misleading, cannot give up your rights. And you should not give up your rights. Now, the problem I have with this data, first and foremost, the way that they researched, they said that the states with the weakest gun laws have the highest rates of gun deaths. Well, that's like saying the highest rates of obesity are in town. Typically, the highest rates of obesity are in towns where the cooking is good. It's natural, ladies and gentlemen. If you have good food, and I know that's maybe a bad comparison, but that's kind of how it is. If you have a town like my hometown of New Orleans, first off, that is famous for its cooking, Louisiana is number one in terms of obesity in the United States. Now, that's natural that that happens. And yes, while we may have easier gun laws than other states, yes, the homicide rates and gun violence, of course, when you say guns, uh, would be up. However, what about people who get killed with knives? What about people who actually have cars get killed in car accidents? People who have a car run over them. That has happened. There are actually a higher number of people who die from knives than do guns, according to FBI statistics. See, and CNN is known for pushing stuff like this and focusing on gun deaths. But notice why they just don't talk about deaths at all. Is it deaths that bother you, or is it just deaths by guns? Hell no, white folks ain't gonna give up your guns, but don't you as black folks think you should give up your guns, ever. If you look at Japan, for instance, they talk about the fact that Japan doesn't have a high gun violence rate because they got rid of all the guns. But Japan actually has a high suicide rate. In Japan, this is on Wikipedia. Japan is considered a major social suicide is considered a major social issue. In 2017, the country had the seventh highest suicide rate in the OECD at per at 14.9 per 100,000 persons. And in 2019, the country had the second highest suicide rate among the G7 developed nations. Now, I bring this up and point this out to you because if we're concerned about guns, that's one thing, but are we also concerned about the loss of life in general? And should it just be about the loss of life and not just focusing on one particular tool that is used and common in homicides? I'm not trying to downplay. Let me be clear, and I have to say this again. Any murder of any child, I don't want to see children killed, whether they're shot up with an AR-15, whether they're shot with 45 ACP by accident when they're walking home from school, or when their mother and father melt them in a fucking couch. Or you have two stupid ass parents, a mother and grandmother, that actually force fed their grandbaby, their daughter, a bottle of alcohol, whiskey, or tequila, rather, excuse me. I think it was tequila, and had them drink it halfway to the point that she had liver failure and died. And I'm saying all of this now, as you see CNN is coming out with this. Matthew McConaughey, of course, who is from Uvalde, Texas, he recently visited the town and released a statement urging Americans to act. The star of The Lincoln Lawyer and the Oscar winner from movies, I believe it was from the Dallas Buyers Club as well, had this to say about his gun control. He stated, quote, the true call, I'm reading part of it, the true call to action now is for every American to take a longer and deeper look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what is it that we truly value? How do we repair the problem? What small sacrifices can we individually take to preserve a healthier and safer nation, state, and neighborhood tomorrow? We cannot exhale once again, make excuses, and accept these tragic realities as the status quo. As Americans, Texans, mothers, and fathers, it's time we reevaluate and renegotiate our wants from our needs. We have to rearrange our values and find a common ground above this devastating American reality that has tragically become our children's issue. This is an epidemic we can control, and whichever side of the aisle we may stand on, we all know we can do better. We must do better. Action must be taken so that no parent has to experience what parents in Uvalde and the others before them have endured. Now, let me stop right there. Let me go back. If you read this here, I want you to pay attention to his words. He says, as you are aware, there was another mass shooting today. This time in my hometown of Uvalde, Texas. Once again, we have tragically proven that we are failing to be responsible for the rights our freedoms grant us. The rights, failing to be responsible for the rights our freedom grants us. You know, the Second Amendment is not just the part of, there's a Second Amendment, of course, which gives us our gun rights, but then you also have all of the other amendments that give you rights. The First Amendment, of course, gives you right to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, from the press, freedom to from the establishment of a particular religion. So freedom to practice and the freedom of it. And then what that means is no one can force you to practice what religion you want, but no one can stop you from practicing the religion you want. You have a right to express yourself. You also have a right to assemble. You have a right, freedom of the press to report these things. However, it seems when you look at CNN, MSNBC, CBS, and yes, Fox News and ABC, all of those major networks, they are designed basically by corporations to not give you the news, but report what their corporate interests want you to hear. So you read this statement by McConaughey. He's talking about an epidemic we can control. Now, he is not alone with this. There have been other celebrities, even John Voight, old as John Voight. John Voight is somebody I've known who actually has been a known Republican, calling out Barack Obama for years. Not that I defend Barack Obama, but Voight released a statement on Newsweek saying he's calling for proper qualifications for gun ownership. He released this video. I want you to hear it.
Sure that we will never see this horror again in this lifetime. We must identify every individual for their credentials, for their mental capacity to bear arms. There should be proper qualifications for gun ownership and proper testing. One should only own a gun if they're qualified and schooled. I stand with all. I stand for freedom of each soul's truths. I stand for God's truths. I stand for one to be condemned for evil doings, and that they must pay a price. May God watch over all and bring comfort for this loss which may never heal, for each child was so precious a gift. And God will call on Jesus to pray for these families. Love to you.
Now, here's my problem with these celebrities who speak. Do you see ever when you had the killings, and I know Brother Harvey probably not want to hear this, but and using Chicago as the scapegoat and example, but let's talk about Chicago. Let's talk about New Orleans. Let me just give me a breakdown. Do you ever see these celebrities like John Voight or Matthew McConaughey or whoever that's pulling for gun control talk about the violence that goes on in New Orleans when we have several kids that got shot? Just the other day, we had 2 homicides. We've had one of my Zulu brothers who was a police officer out in Houston, a police officer, although that probably involved, I don't know the ifs and ands about it, but who was just randomly shot and killed when he was eating out with a friend. Do you see these celebrities speak when this young black kid's being shot and killed? Yet the news media, you don't. And I know in Chicago a couple of years ago, they had multiple people that were killed within a 3-day period. I am not, let me be clear, I'm not trying to shame or put down Chicago or anything like that. Just like in my home city of New Orleans, I mean, look, there's parts of New Orleans that are bad that I wouldn't be in. New Orleans East, I talk about it all the time. Every time I'm out there, we just had a city council meeting with Oliver Thomas. The citizens of New Orleans East were talking about the crime that they have to put up with. Why developers aren't coming out to New Orleans East because they're scared of developing in this area. Because every night, I mean, I could be there, even, and it doesn't even have to be at night. It could be in the middle of the day. I hear pa 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 pa. I hear guns going off, but I don't blame the gun. I blame the individual. And let me be clear: these people that are calling for that, they'll never get rid of guns. But if we start chipping away, giving up our rights, other things will follow eventually. You see, there's a reason why there was a Second Amendment and why it was created was because the government, the founding fathers knew, I said this again, that there may be a time when the American people would have to defend themselves from tyrants. You know, there's an old saying I saw earlier today. I would rather, someone wrote, I would rather dangerous freedom than passive tyranny. In other words, somebody saying, oh, why don't you give this up a little bit? Get rid of this. You don't need this. It's okay. Take this. You can use these. Well, if we get rid of all the AR-15, can we have another situation like Virginia Tech? Can we have a situation which Virginia Tech, by the way, is actually the largest mass shooting? Is what they always like to use these terms, and you have to be careful with it when they say mass shooting. It's deadliest mass shootings. You look here on Wikipedia. It says that the Virginia Tech shooting is the deadliest mass shooting in the United States until it was surpassed 9 years later, talking about the Pulse nightclub. And they said that was a hate crime, but I don't know too much about it. I think the guy could have, as what I heard, is the druggie. I think he was gay as well. I could be wrong if I am, my mistake. But you look at this, Sung Hu Cho killed 32 people, wounded 17. Others with 2 semi-automatic pistols. They killed 32 people with 2 semi-automatic pistols, ladies and gentlemen. A Glock 19, you see that? That's a Glock 19. This is a Walther P22. Fires a 22 caliber bullet. I own multiple guns. Yeah, you can have multiple guns too. I mean, if you left your gun out on the street, dark-skinned brother, your gun is not going to grow legs and then walk up in a church or school and kill people. Yet we got celebrities like John Voight, who is a staunch Republican. He talked about how America's moving to a socialist country, and he decides, well, we want to push for gun control. We need to have stronger background checks. And look, I'm cool with background checks. Yeah, some people shouldn't own a gun, but here's the thing. The police are not, this is not Minority Report. This is not Tom Cruise in a Steven Spielberg movie where we can stop a mass shooter before it happens. Because you won't know anything until that person actually does something, unless you have some specific facts that you can bring towards the police department and they know for sure there's probable cause that it could likely happen, then guess what? That's the only way they're going to do it. But violence is as American as apple pie. You know, Ice-T said it best, you'll never get justice on stolen land. But speaking of police, I want to show you guys something because I took something, a little something, because I want you to understand what I'm talking about here and why I say it's only you that can defend yourselves. This is a court case. It's an old District of Columbia Court of Appeals case that talked about what's called the public duty doctrine, meaning that police officers have a public duty to, it's a concept that there's a duty to rescue by the police. Well, there are two cases, and this all happened in the 70s, separate cases involving Carolyn Warren, Miriam Douglas, Joan Taliaferro, and Wilfred Nicole, where they sued the District of Columbia and members of the police department for negligent failure to provide police services, adequate police services. And what you had happen, so let's start with the ladies. One night back in March of 1975, two men broke into their rooming house. These men were later identified as Marvin Kent and James Morse. They entered Douglas's second room, Miriam Douglas' second room, and they forced her, Kent, to perform, well, they both raped her. Whether it's oral sex or whether it's just flat out vaginal sex, it's still rape. It was done against her will. Warren and Taliaferro heard Douglas's screams from the floor below, and they called 911 and told the house dispatcher the house was being burglarized. They requested immediate assistance, and the 911 operator told her to remain quiet and said that police would be dispatched promptly. Warren's call received by the police department headquarters at 6:23 a.m. and was recorded as a burglary in process. 3 minutes later, at 6:26, a call was dispatched to the officers on the street as a code 2 assignment, although calls of crime in progress should be given priority and designated as a code 1. 4 police cruisers responded to the broadcast, 3 to the Lamont Street residence, and 1 to the address to investigate a possible subject. Warren and Taliaferro crawled into their window onto an adjoining roof and waited for the police to arrive. While there, they observed one policeman drive through the alley behind the house and proceed to the front of the residence without stopping, leaning out the window, or getting out of the car to check the back entrance of the house. A second officer knocked on the door of the front of the residence, but when he received no answer, he left, and 3 officers departed the scene at 6:33 a.m., 5 minutes after they arrived. Warren and Taliaferro crawled back inside their room. They again heard Douglas's continuing screams, called the police, and told the officer that intruders entered the home and requested assistance. And an officer assumed assured them help was on the way. The second call was received at 6:42 a.m. and recorded merely as investigate the trouble, but no police officers were dispatched. The ladies, Warren and Taliaferro, thought that the police might be in the house and called down to Douglas, but by doing so, they alerted Kent to their presence, and at knife point, Kent and Morse first forced all 3 of the women to come accompany them to Kent's apartment. And for nearly 14 hours, the women were held captive. They were raped, robbed, beaten, and forced to commit sexual acts upon one another and made to submit to the demands of Kent and Morse. They sued the District of Columbia and the Metropolitan Police Department for dispatchers' failure to forward the 6:23 a.m. call with the proper degree of urgency, the responding officer's failure to follow standard police investigative procedures, specifically their failure to check the rear entrance and position themselves properly near the doors and windows to ascertain whether there was any activity inside, and the dispatcher's failure to dispatch the 6:42 a.m. call. Similarly, in 1978, on April 30th, a man named Nickel stopped his car for a red light at an intersection between Missouri Avenue and 16th Street Northwest. Unknown occupants in a vehicle directly behind appellant struck his car in the rear several times, then proceeded to beat him up and broke his jaw. The Metropolitan Police Department arrived at the scene, and in response to the officer's direction, appellant's companion ceased any further efforts to obtain ID information of the assailants. When the officer then failed to get the information, leaving Nickel unable to institute legal action against the assailants, Nickel brought a negligence action against the officer and the MPD in the District of Columbia. And in a 4-3 decision, the District of Columbia Court of Appeals affirmed the trial court's dismissal of complaints against the District of Columbia and the members of the police department based on the public duty doctrine, ruling that the duty to provide public services is owed, quote, to the public at large. Y'all hear me? I want to know if y'all can hear me, if you understand what I'm saying. I know some of you may not be able to read this, but let me zoom in. So what they said is the duty to provide public services is owed to the public at large and absent a special relationship between, quote, the police and an individual, no specific legal duty exists. So what this means is that if there's no special relationship, meaning the police have some type of arrangement or agreement with a particular individual, I guess you could say contract, then there's no specific legal duty that existed. The court adopted the trial court's determination that no special relationship existed between the police and appellants, and therefore no specific legal duty existed between the police and the appellants. Now, similarly, if you look at the Supreme Court case, this is in 2005, Castle Rock versus Gonzalez. The decision was, the holding was written by none other than Scalia, Anthony Scalia. Y'all know him, huh, black folk? Scalia wrote the decision, the conservative Scalia. And Scalia stated in this case, now, just to let you know the facts of it, essentially what happened is a woman by the name of Jessica Gonzalez, Lenahan Gonzalez, obtained a restraining order against her husband, Simon, who had been stalking her. And sometime on June 4th, 1999, he violated this protective order and murdered his 3 children. He had kidnapped his daughters and murdered them. They actually had 4 children together, but he had his 3 daughters. And the search of the vehicle, they found the bodies of the 3 daughters who were determined to have been killed prior to the arrival at the police station. Now, she had reported that he had the children and took them in violation of the order. And yet, she called them multiple times and filed suit against the District of Colorado, against Colorado's Police Department under Article 42 Title 42 USC 1983. For the record, under 1983, that's what we use to sue officers. We call it under color of law. So the Supreme Court, let me know if you're paying attention to this. The Supreme Court guys essentially stated under Antonin Scalia that while this was tragic, they said that enforcement of the restraining order was not mandatory under Colorado law. Were a mandate for enforcement to exist, it would not create an individual right to enforcement that could be considered a protected entitlement under the precedent of Board of Regents of State Colleges versus Roth. And even if there were a protecting individual entitlement to enforcement of a restraining order, such entitlement would not have monetary value and hence would not count as property for the due process clause. So what Ms. Gonzalez held was that, well, what she believed was that under 42 as Title 42, which of course, if you read that, that is the enforcement what Title 42 started out as, and you can read there, was Civil Rights Act of 1871. The Enforcement Act, it was the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was signed into law initially. It was in 1871. That was Ulysses S. Grant. And it was used during Reconstruction, just interesting history, to fight against the Ku Klux Klan in response to violence that they instituted during the Reconstruction era. It was done to protect Black Americans, see Black people playing a role in this country. Foundational Black Americans playing a role in this country with that. Very interesting. But to get back to this, what she said was that there was some type of protected entitlement, what she thought was a federal protected property interest in regards to this restraining order. And she sued the state because apparently she called the police multiple times, visited the police multiple times, and they did nothing. Now, the moral to this story, ladies and gentlemen, and you've heard this, and there's some other cases, but law enforcement has no duty to defend you. Law enforcement does not have a legal duty to defend you. So if you start to see any lawsuits pop up, I'm just in my expertise 100% sure that barring some type of agreement with the school or with the parent, with the police department, the Texas Department of Public Safety, I don't see this going further as a lawsuit. That's why if you see some of these lawsuits now, they try and sue these gun manufacturers because they know that's where the money is. And on top of that, they try to say that they're responsible for putting it in the hands of an individual. You know, that movie that came out, Runaway Jury, was about that. That movie that starred Gene Hackman and John Cusack, I think Raquel Wise, James Bond's wife. I think that's her name. Rachel Wise. Yeah, good actress. That has a lot to do with that. That actually has a lot to do with that. But I say this to say, you know, I have Judge Joe Brown come on, and we talk about these issues all the time about guns and so forth. Because I'm active. I go to a range. I'm part of a gun club myself. I've been around guns. I've been around AR-15s. I have an AR-15, and I'm happy to. Let me say this too. We say it's a weapon of mass killing and so forth. The Department of Public Safety, the Department of Homeland Security, has actually said that the AR-15 is suitable for homeland use, home defense. And there have been incidents, and I want you to understand this, some people say, why would you need a gun like that? I'll use this as an example. Look at what happened in the LA riots when the Koreans had AK-47s, Ruger 30s, and AR-15s. A lot of their businesses in the community, and you know, whether I care about Koreans in the Black community or not, that's something different. I particularly don't, but would their businesses have stood burn with the other businesses that did burn if they were not armed, had they not been armed with AR-15s, with AK-47s, and Ruger 30s? If you honestly think they could have just done it with snub nose or Saturday night special, as they say, the police would call it, I think you are sadly mistaken. You can do damage, yes, with a 12 gauge shotgun. More damage actually than an AR-15. Shotguns, as you know, when it shoots buckshot, 3/4-inch buckshots, you know that it's going to blow a hole in somebody. Actually, in some things, I've seen these things just affect them. If they go through a door, the pellets from the buckshot from the shotgun spread everywhere, hit someone at a high velocity. It can spread, it can do damage. You would not want to be hit with a shotgun. Back in the 1980s, there was a police shootout. FBI got into a shootout with some bank robbers in 1986. Just look at that case. And in that case, that shootout, there were several FBI agents who were killed. By these two robbers, although they eventually died. And they were armed only with, they had revolvers. They had Smith & Wesson revolvers. They didn't have big, AR-15s. They didn't have shotguns, and they all died by these two suspects. There were 4 deaths, including two of the perpetrators. So the 2 perpetrators were killed, along with 2 FBI agents. And as a result of that incident, it allowed the FBI actually changed their protocol in regards to shootouts. It allowed them to have more effective handguns because the weaponry that they were using was insufficient. They were using 9mm semi-automatic pistols with 9 rounds fired, or Smith & Wesson models. The suspects, William Maddox and Michael Platt, they had Ruger Mini 14 22.3 Remington semi-automatic rifle, a Smith & Wesson Model 586 357 Magnum, 357 revolver. They had all of these weapons, excuse me. That was used to kill these men. So I'm just bringing up all these facts, and I'm bringing this also up to make a point also, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. When we have celebrities, I'm using this to make a point to say that you can be killed and shot at by anything. And remember, even with handguns, if you use the weapons that they have that I mentioned, the police officers had handguns, and so did these men as well, obviously. But you can tell, even if you injure and shoot someone, because these guys were actually shot and hit with these rounds, they didn't necessarily die immediately, even after they were shot. They did not die when they were shot automatically, so they kept firing. And the FBI, they investigated, placed partial blame for the agents' deaths on the lack of stopping power exhibited by their service weapons. So you get celebrities like John Voight, you get celebrities like Matthew McConaughey, Whoopi Goldberg, a bunch of people talking about gun control. And these people are multimillionaires. These are people who have access to armed security guards that can protect them 24/7 around the clock. Hell, Clarence Avant, the man who's known as the Black Godfather, his wife was murdered in their home in one of the most gated communities by an assailant who had an AR-15 pistol. And he had a damn security guard in the house. You can only do so much, guys, before you become a victim. I am not encouraging, this video as a disclaimer, I do not encourage violence, but I do encourage common sense and self-defense. And if you got to use a weapon to defend yourself, to defend your family, by all means do it. If you can get a concealed carry permit, by all means do it. Do it the right way. Now, I do recommend you also get training done. Go to, a concealed carry class where they will teach you about gun safety, how to fire a firearm. Go to a shooting range, learn how to fire firearms. Learn your local laws as well about, when concealed carry permit, your self-defense statutes. Now, every state is different in terms of how you use ammunition and so forth, how much ammunition you can buy. And back on that study with CNN, here's another thing I would point out too. They mentioned that the states that have the weakest gun laws have the highest gun deaths. But I got a question for them. If you look at Washington, D.C., if you look at Chicago, if you look at New York, they have some of the strictest gun laws in their cities, but they also have high crime and murder rates. That's a fact. They're not safe. I'm not using Chicago as a model. Harvey, don't be mad if I'm using Chicago as the model, but I'm making a point. In these democratically run cities, you got to factor in, number one, when they come up with statistics like, well, this state has this weak gun laws. Well, what about your cities where there are cities, major metropolitan cities like New York, which is the largest city in the United States? Chicago, I believe, is second, if I'm not mistaken. No, Los Angeles is second, excuse me. Houston, I believe, is fourth or third, and Chicago is around there. If you look at those cities that are democratically run, you're going to find high, and especially obviously because the population is bigger, you factor that in, but they have strict gun laws, and apparently murder and death keeps happening. Robberies are happening. You look at Australia, yeah, they had a whole gun ban, but guess what? The crime rate went up. They can't even in their parliament define what is a home invasion and what's a burglary. So you got to factor all of that in. You got to factor all of that in. And I'm going to wrap this up, but don't you, and look, you decide what you want. I saw my sister Danielle, she probably went to bed. Who said that she's not pulling her kids out of school. You got to do what you have to do to make sure your children are safe, guys. I don't have kids yet. I will eventually, but you got to do with, so Danielle is in the building. Oh, thank you, Danielle. You got to do what you have to do to make keep your family and children safe. But please, by all means, if you can, go and buy you a firearm. Do like Dark Skin Brother is doing. Get your Second Amendment game up, guys, because either you're going to be a victim or you're going to be a survivor at the end of the day. I like to be a survivor. Now, I'm going to wrap this up because it's getting late. Yeah, Danielle is still up. But look, it's getting late, so I said I was going to be an hour, and I went over about 10 minutes. But you all be safe and be blessed. If you have not already, please donate to my Cash App, PayPal ticker at the bottom, GooglePay, Zelle. We also have Venmo. Anything to support the channel. As you know, this channel is not monetized by YouTube. I would also ask, we didn't do callings today because I'm out of town, but I would like for you all to please, if you want to advertise with the channel, go to gavin.jewishone@gmail.com. We are promoting Black-owned businesses. June is Black Music Month as well, so I want you all to check out, of course, my music like Video Soul and Gotta Get On Up. We also want you to subscribe to @Commonwealth Cos. That is the Facebook page for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr. I'm proud to say we're going to try and put this available for pre-order now. So I'm working on that right now when I get back to the room to do that. And also, we're going to go ahead and have you all subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to Patreon at the bottom for content, not here on YouTube. Also, go to Norman'sCreoleBlends.com. Try on chicken, meat, or fish. Norman's goes great with every dish. Even goes good with your roast. I'm not proud, but I'm happy to boast. So there you go. I got it rhyming with roast. Um, you guys be safe, be blessed, ladies and gentlemen, and be one. I'll holla. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get on up. The answer is a 2-year-old doesn't want to sleep. Dark skinned brother is here. So all of y'all that were listening, you all understood what I was talking about with the shooting. So yeah, don't be a victim. But let's get on up, guys. I'm out.
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat. Cause on the dance floor is where we'll meet. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the. Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really grooving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the. Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop or do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really grooving. Time to give your body, we gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Now, 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you breathe, then you achieve. And so, if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. On the 5, 6, and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. Slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll feel the groove. Get on the floor. Get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the floor, baby. Yeah, gotta get on up. Come on, baby, gotta get on up. Baby. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up.
You had one job, Miami. One job. Boston wins the East Conference Finals. Oh well. Good night, guys.